Doing amazing, fantastic, excited, and can't wait to talk to this young man.
All right. Well, I wanted to kind of know how it came from. He's a New York Times bestselling author and plus a musician, Ralph Pizzullo. Thanks for stopping by, man. And how did this happen? How do you have those two talents both
Uh,
together?
I don't know. I guess I was just born with them. I've always loved music and I've always loved books. So, writing. So, try to dabble in both. Make my career is mainly as a writer, but I play music once in a while. I have been in various different bands over the years and so on. So, yeah, yeah, and write songs. Yeah,
Wow, very cool. I want to ask you a quick question.
yeah,
You've worked with Navy SEALs, CIA operatives.
yeah,
I mean, deep insiders. That's so cool.
yeah.
What's the key to earning their trust and respect to get your information?
Yeah, it's just, look, I grew up as the son of a diplomat, so I grew up in the world of government and CIA agents and military people. So I sort of understood. I grew up with their kids. I sort of understood their language, how they operate, and integrity and trust, as you mentioned, is really important to them. And so that's the key. Like, if they tell you something like I'll tell you this, but you can't write about it, I always do that. So I never betray that trust. Yeah,
Yeah, that's so true. And you learned from this and built relationships
exactly,
from
exactly.
understanding it. And you almost are a journalist in a lot of ways in that
Yeah,
way.
I started my writing career as a journalist. Yeah. So so yeah, it's just like anything else. You develop, like with your friends, you develop trust. They confide certain things to you and you kind of understand where they're coming from, right? I've always been really interested in other people's perspectives from growing up overseas because every country has its own culture and history. And so, if you really want to relate well to them and succeed with them, you have to understand where they're coming from, you know?
Wow, you've got two books coming out in July.
Yeah, yeah.
That's pretty exciting.
It is exciting. It just, the publishing industry, you write something and sometimes it takes years before it comes out. Yeah, yeah. So yeah.
How could you write two books? Greg and I were lucky if we could get one book. How do you have two books coming out the same time? You must write a ton.
Yeah, I do. I write every day. I mean, this is what I love. This is what I do for a living. And I always have, probably two or three or four projects kind of juggling at the same time, you know? And yeah, you just do it. My
Well,
wife thinks I'm crazy, but whatever.
well, you pick of the two new books that you want to talk about, but tell us about one of them and why you decided to write about it. And
Okay, I think I'm here. Yeah, I'm writing this book with a really interesting guy. He was a CIA, what they call a cutout. So he's not officially a CIA agent, but all their deep undercover stuff are done by cutouts. So they're people who work for them, but work for them through like a cutout company. Now, in this case, this guy, Tosh Plumley, he was an airline pilot. He was recruited when he was a kid. He was 14. He came from a broken home. He joined the Texas National Guard, and they spotted him in the Texas National Guard because he had what they called moxie. So they recruited this guy, and he ended up spending like 60-year career working as a cutout for the CIA. One thing that at the age of 19 or 20, he was flying arms to Fidel Castro in Cuba. So he knew Fidel Castro, he knew his group. The CIA was actually in the early days of the revolution supplying arms to Castro. And there's a picture of Tosh with the Castro group he was filmed in, for Life magazine. A Life magazine a photographer took a picture of him. And this man he's like a zealot. He's appeared in throughout history in all these different areas. and he was actually in Dealey Plaza on November 22nd, 1963, when President Kennedy was shot. He was there as part of a Pentagon abort team. So the Pentagon heard that there was a plot to kill President Kennedy, and they put together a group of people and they sent them to Dallas to try to spot the shooters. And Tosh Plumlee was part of them. He was not on the North Knoll, not on the grassy knoll. He was on the other knoll, the South Knoll. And he claims, and a lot of forensic evidence now backs it up, that the shots that hit President Kennedy in the head came from the South Knoll, not the grassy knoll. And he testified this to the FBI. He drew a map for them, for the FBI, and they basically, threw him in jail. They were trying to control all the information, and he never testified to the Warren Commission. But he's been maintaining this for the last 60 years.
Wow. And Greg, you always are interested in that time period, aren't you?
Oh, very.
Yeah. You, Greg? Yeah.
Yeah, Greg. I was going to ask Greg that. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I'm very interested in that time period. It's one of the earliest memories I have was watching President Kennedy's funeral on TV, a black and white TV, and my grandmother's sun parlor. I was probably around 3, I think.
Yeah.
And just very vivid.
I was living in Vietnam, and my dad was assigned to the embassy in Saigon, Vietnam, and I was about 10 or 11. And I remember when they showed Lee Harvey Oswald, when he looked scared and he said, "I'm a patsy." I told my parents when I watched it on TV, I said, "They're going to kill that guy." And then, of course, like a day later, Jack Ruby did kill him. And my parents were like, "How did you know that?" And it was just an instinct, right? So, yeah.
Yeah. And the instinct. And did you learn any behind the secrets from writing this book about what happened?
Oh yeah, for sure. Like this guy was like I said, he was a cutout. So he was he in his plane to Dallas, he flew Johnny Roselli, who was a gangster, E. Howard Hunt, a number of other CIA, Cubans, and so on and so forth. And their job was to try, like I said, the Pentagon found out about the plot to kill Kennedy, and their job was to spot the shooters. So they had a group stationed on the South Knoll. They had a group stationed on the North Knoll, which was the grassy knoll, and they had a group stationed behind. And Tosh's contention, which he can't prove, was that Lee Harvey Oswald was part of one of the abort team members.
Okay. Now, Greg, before your final question, I know you have one more question before that.
Yeah, I do. So just tell us real quick. So basically what I understand, you've got these 2 books coming out, the Great Chinese Art Heist and then Stolen Elections after that. Just give us a quick snippet of either one of those.
All right. So the Great Chinese Art Heist, starting in 2010, there were these there were big break-ins in major museums in Europe, like breaking through the, skylights. They would set cars afire in a different part of the city to distract the police. They would break into these museums like the Fontainebleau Museum outside of Paris. And these professional thieves would go in and they would just steal specific Chinese artifacts. They leave a Rembrandt on the wall, and the police were stumped. And there were a whole series of these break-ins. And what they found out is they tracked them back to the opium wars of the 19th century of 1860. And it turned out that a lot of these artifacts had been looted by the British and the French from the Chinese. And it's like now the Chinese are going to, steal back their precious artifacts. And they continue to do this. And it's all related to sort of what they consider the century of humiliation. So the Chinese feel is that they spent 100 years being humiliated by the West, and now they're gonna get their revenge, and that explains sort of the fentanyl sales to through Mexico, and a lot of their behavior of stealing IPOs and not honoring copyrights and all that stuff.
Hmm.
Okay, so
Well, it's going to be a cool book.
yeah, that's a really interesting book. The other one is I was recruited last summer by two government whistleblowers, one of whom is Gary Bernson, who was like the hero of Tora Bora and helped overthrow the Taliban. He's like a legend in the CIA. 5 years ago, these gentlemen, two gentlemen, started this investigation into election fraud based in they were researching a criminal network in Venezuela. And among the people that they recruited, the sources that they recruited in Venezuela kept telling them, hey, I can tell you all about the money laundering and the drug dealing that's going on, but we can also tell you about the election fraud. And these two guys were like, what are you talking about? And it turns out that the strongman Hugo Chavez set up. He had a referendum in 2004 that he was going to lead, that he was going to lose, and he went, and the Cubans came to him and said, "Hey, you're going to lose if you don't do something, and we suggest that you look into electronic voting machines. That if you can control the software in electronic voting machines, you can control the election. You can steal the election." They did that. They were success. He hired three engineers. They were successful. He won the vote, and he gave them $200 million. And he said, "Hey, develop this software, and let's try to expand it into Latin America, because I want to. If I can control certain votes in democratic elections in Latin America, I mean that would be
Yeah.
great. I could
Yeah.
really expand socialism and so on." And they did that. And then they established a company here in the United States, and they started infiltrating our elections. And since 2006, they have controlled every election in the United States.
Wow.
Presidential election, senatorial, governorships, and so on. In 2008, and the way the whistleblowers did this, they're criminal investigators. So what they did is they recruited sources so they recruited engineers, Venezuelan engineers who had helped create this software and set up these companies. And they have, so it took them 5 years to put this case together. But so in 2000, and so Obama never was elected president officially. Hillary did win in 2016. Trump won in 2020, and they tried to steal the last election, but they were blocked. Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing.
It's going to be it's all being investigated now by the Department of Justice, and it's all going on behind the scenes. But that book is coming out September 2nd, and it will kind of blow the whole story open.
Wow, that sounds like an exciting book to read.
Yeah,
I can't wait to check that one out.
Yeah. Great.
Well, Neil had to jump a little early, but
Okay.
I don't want to hold you too long. But there's one question that I want to ask you. I ask all of our
Sure.
guests, our celebrities, our
Sure.
world famous authors like yourself, and rock stars. So tell me, Ralph, what do you feel is the most important thing in life you've ever learned?
Wow. Keep an open mind. Keep an open mind all the time. I mean, I hear more probably information than most people, just because I'm lucky to know the people I do. But I always keep an open mind. So I never feel like I absolutely know what happened, or, keep an open mind.
Wow.
Life is really interesting. And I feel, today just too many people just jump to conclusions based on political beliefs, or, certain prejudices or whatever. And it's like, you try to fight through all that stuff, and try to arrive at the truth. The truth will set you free. I really believe that. Yeah.
No, that's excellent. Thank you so much for that. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
And I want to thank you so much for being on the Neil Haley Show and Celebrity Interviews Live from the Grotto. I wish you all the luck and success in the world continued. And I can't wait to get both of those books. I'm definitely going to read them.
Okay, Greg.
Thank you so much.